Okay, we're back. Daniel in Plain Language, Part 5. This time we're going to do uh, Chapter 9, and we got a lot of ground to cover, so I'm going to get right into it. The promise of the Messiah. Wow. God has decided that the very perfection of God, 70 weeks, will come upon His people. Well, let's take a look at this a little deeper. I just want to make sure that you are with me. You may have seen this already if you looked at Revelation in plain language, but I want to run by it really quick again. In the important numeric terms in Revelation in plain language, we notice that weeks, or perfectly, or that which is 7, for example, 7 weeks equals 7 times 7, or that which is sevened, okay, is 49. But 70 weeks is 70 sevened, or 70 multiplied by 7, which looks like 70 times 7, or 490, and also 7 times 7, or 70, all of which represents God. That which represents God. So whenever you see 70 weeks, that is that which represents God. Another point to be made here before we leave the important numeric terms is the one that we did on He is. He is reference to the Messiah. 7 weeks, or 7 multiplied by 7, which is 49. He is God, and He is 62, which is the fullness of man confirmed. He is the fullness of man confirmed, and He is God multiplied, or by 7, which looks like 49 plus 62 is 111 times 7, which again, weeks multiplied times 7 equals 777, or that which represents Messiah, or the Son of God, or the idea of all perfect, or perfection. Another good reference of this is in Matthew, the 18th chapter. I think I'm in the 18th chapter here. It says, Then Peter came to him and said, Lord, how oft shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him? Till 7 times? And Jesus says, I say unto you, until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. And what he was saying was unto the perfection of God. That's how often you should forgive your brother. Okay, so now those references being made, we can go in and do some work. God has decided that the very perfection of God, 70 weeks, will come upon His people, and the very holy city, that is, the people of God, it is He that shall make an end of transgressions for all who love and obey Him. He will make it so that all sins can be brought to an end, or forgiven, and that God's people will have everlasting reconciliation from the iniquities of the sins they have put behind them. Through this He will bring in everlasting righteousness by a sacrifice once and for all, and through this He will seal the fate of His people and confirm the prophecy of the prophets by anointing the Most Holy One. And so you see how comfortably this fits when you get it right? You say 70 weeks, the perfection of God. If you try to say 70 weeks and that has something to do with the deliverance of Israel or something else, anything else, it just doesn't fit. But when you get it right, it just fits like a glove. Okay, let's go a little further. The rebuilding of Jerusalem. Okay, out of Daniel 9 as well. When the commandment goes forth Ezra 1 and 1 illustrates to restore and rebuild Jerusalem unto, or to make it ready for Messiah. The streets shall be built again, and the walls, even in troublesome times. Ezra 1 and 1 is a reference to when uh, King Cyrus of Persia, ordered that Jerusalem should be rebuilt and the wall as well. And it was, in fact, rebuilt in troublesome times. In Nehemiah, you see in 4 and 16, they actually held their swords while they were rebuilding this thing. The prince, here it is, the prince with a capital P, is going to be God and man confirmed. And we looked at that already, but 7 weeks and 62, he is not only God, but he is man confirmed. He is God man, or God man, or God and man. After the Messiah is confirmed unto the fullness of man, that is 62 weeks, he shall be crucified, not for himself, but, or that crucified is cut off in Daniel. Okay, it doesn't come out crucified in Daniel, it comes out cut off. But not for himself, but for the people. Now afterwards, okay, the people of the world and their prince will come and destroy the city, the temple, and its people, sanctuary. And the sanctuary is always reference to the people, not an actual sanctuary. And the end of all this will be with a flood. Okay, this is talking about the destruction of Jerusalem. Now let's take a look at the next. The overspreading of desolation. Let's look at this. Now unto the end, until just before the end of the war between good and evil, the war between Messiah and the devil, God has decided the city, Jerusalem, will be desolate. Just before the end. Okay? Or not just before the end, or unto the end. Okay, it's sometime toward the end. Okay, God will confirm through great power and miracle his agreement or covenant, the New Testament, to many as unto a brief period of time unto perfection, 1 week, or a generation. The indefinite article here is 1. Okay, week. And I want to illustrate something. In 2 Peter 3 and 8 it says, But beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day. The indefinite article here is 1. Okay? You just never know. But the way it's being used in Daniel, 1 week, has to do with a generation. What shall we say then? That God will confirm through great powers and miracles his agreement or the covenant, the New Testament, 1 week or a generation. It goes on to say, during this time God will cause the sacrifice and oblations to cease. And the very fact that Jerusalem was destroyed in that first generation, that first century church, that first generation, the city of Jerusalem was destroyed. So both those things occurred. Through the powers and the miracles, the covenant was confirmed and the sacrifices and oblations ceased. It is very important to note that God never intended to confirm the covenant forever. It says for 1 week, or that is 1 generation, with powers and signs and miracles. And this was very intentional by God, so as not to create a miracle dependence within his people. It's important to note that in 2 Timothy, the 3rd chapter, or the 2nd chapter, that Paul left Trophimus in Miletus sick. In 1 Timothy 5:23, he told Timothy, drink no longer water, but use a little wine for thy stomach's sake and thine often infirmities. And he mentions in Philippians the 2:26 that Epaphroditus was sick unto death. Okay? Moreover, James says that if any be sick, let them call for the elders that they might anoint him and pray over them. So God leaves his people with a pattern that while Christ can do all things, we can do all things through Christ, he leaves them with a pattern that miracles had their time and their place and their purpose, and that prayer and faith have their purpose and are exercised only insofar as God's people are allowed of God to so do. Thank you, and we're out of time.